From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello, I'm Alison Mitchell and welcome to Stumped. With me is Jim Maxwell, who's on Central Coast for the ABC, and Charu Sharma for Akashvani joins us from Bangalore. Now, has Virat Kohli earned the right to decide when he calls time on his international career? He's done a big sit-down interview for the RCB podcast, his IPL team, of course, where he's suggested he won't play in the 2027 Cricket World Cup if he needs to prove his worth to the team. Now, Kohli's 37. He's already retired from India's Test and T20 teams, but is still involved in their 50-over side and played a key part in last year's Champions Trophy success. Now, he said in the interview, if I can add value to the environment that I'm a part of, and the environment feels like I can add value, I'll be seen. He went on to say, if I'm made to feel like I need to prove my worth and my value, I'm not in that space. Earlier in the week, he was announced in the India ODI squad for the 3-match home series they've got against Afghanistan, so there is certainly still room for him right now. Charu, how have his comments been received in India?
Mixed reaction. I think he still has, as you can imagine, an enormous number of fans who are delighted that he's continuing to play for the moment in the IPL and later perhaps in one-day internationals as well, because as I said, he's retired from the other two forms. But there are plenty of voices suggesting quietly, because you don't, openly criticize icons in India or you get slammed in the social media or whatever else, that how long do hungry youngsters have to wait, and how many generations of players, once somebody plays long, as he has played long enough, nearly 20 years, then how long does a generation of players have to wait? Because they, just that slot, say number 4, is not going to be available for so many who are fighting for it. There are voices suggesting that, why don't we let others move in? And yet, the truth is that, his fitness levels, his energy levels, for the moment so visible in the IPL, are also swaying opinion, saying, well, he seems to be right on top of the game, even though it's a T20 game. By the way, he's better suited for ODIs in terms of that strike rate matter of his. Yeah, people are confused about, should he continue? Should he not? He seems to be good enough, but there's so many others.
Well, that's it. But, you mentioned his fitness, and he is a hard worker, make no mistake. He is 100% dedicated. But do you think it's just a matter of course that, every player needs to prove their worth, no matter, how great their status might be?
Under normal circumstances, yes. But in a country where it's religion and suddenly you are god of the game, how do you argue? Because many others before Kohli have faced the same problem. I suppose, quote very famously, Sachin Tendulkar. And nobody could, suggest that, I think Sachin should go. And those who did they weren't seen on earth for a while. But yeah, I do think sometimes, even though Kohli is a much better communicator, if I can say so without any disrespect to Sachin, sometimes the words chosen seem a little more churlish than they need to be, because this is my opinion, I beg your pardon, but what needs to come out through these players is, if the selectors are happy to have me, I'm happy to play for the next year or two or whatever, because we pay no attention to the selectors whose job it is to select a team. We just behave, Indian cricketers sometimes, those who are right on top of the game, that I will do what I want to do, when I want to do, and nobody can interfere with my thoughts and my journey and my progress. So this whole business of, I must not be asked to be proven again, well, you need to have the figures backing up. And if you have a huge trough, as he did for 3 years, then it gets difficult to be selected. So you have to be constantly proving yourself as a sportsman. And that somehow, I think, escapes what was said by Kohli.
Listening to his comments and watching the interview, albeit from afar, it felt almost as if it was leaning towards a bit of a discord with the Indian management, like, a bit of a warning shot across the bows as to the way that, he's treated within that environment, that he doesn't want to be made to feel that he's got to prove himself. You mentioned talent as well. There's a lot of young talent banging down the door. If you're a selector, does he get in that Indian batting lineup for the ODIs?
Or you want me slaughtered? Luckily, I'm not on social media, so I don't know.
Nothing like putting you on the spot.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Well, he ticks many boxes. To begin with, experience. And experience is such a big key when you're playing overseas in away conditions. So he ticks that box better than just about anybody else. He takes energy, because he brings that to the team whenever and wherever he goes. Also, of course, he may not be the captain anymore, but the leadership angle, and all leaders of the game will depend upon him for his advice constantly. So he brings many things. You can't argue with his batting skills either, because he's sort of batting really well when it comes to one-day internationals. He is almost the perfect player because he keeps picking off these ones and twos because he was running between the wickets. He's a real menace at the crease for, any opposition. The only thing you have to weigh against all of this is, when do you blood youngsters? I mean, if somebody carries on, it's a World Cup. It's a World Cup. And if he's in good shape, Allison, he will be selected. If he's, God forbid, if he's not injured, he'll be there.
And you'd hope you're not actually blooding youngsters in a World Cup, wouldn't you? You'd want to bring them in with a bit of a lead-up time also. I mean, Jim, there are a number of examples, aren't there, where players in different countries, around the world, they have hung on and almost decided when they want to retire, even when the outside noise starts to rise.
No doubt about that, particularly the modern game in Australia. Once it became fully professional, I suppose players tended to hang on a little bit longer because they felt they could still contribute, even though the signs of lack of the ability to play the game as they used to were apparent, and it needed maybe a nudge from the selectors or an injury to bring about the end of a player's career. I mean, there haven't been too many summary dismissals of players. Steve Waugh got the chance to play out his career in front of all the fans. He basically orchestrated that for the summer, which was clever of him. But most of the time, you're not going to get away with it if your game's appearing to be on the fade and your team is losing. That's when you're in a bit of strife. So we're getting to a point in Australia with this very good side that we've had for some time is going to go a bit soft around the edges at some point. So decisions will have to be made. But I suppose they're always easy to make if you have a replacement or three that's ready to go. If not, then players might linger. And, you think of Smith and Labuschagne, how much longer are they going to play for Australia? So I'm sorry to take it just to the Australian context, but I hope Virat recognises that the time to go is when he's no longer got the hunger. As long as he's got the hunger, the rest of it looks pretty good. I remember Clive Lloyd playing into his 40s, and even when he retired, he still looked a damn good player. So they're very hard things to judge. And you need strong selectors sometimes to make that decision for players.
Well, if I can give you the example of Jimmy Anderson, who did not want to retire, was not ready to retire, and he did get given the tap on the shoulder. Well, it was a sit down in a hotel in a meeting with Rob Key, Brendan McCullum, and Ben Stokes, and that was, his career was brought to an end when he wasn't ready for it. And yet there he is now playing county championship cricket and ripping it up and taking wickets at will at age 43. And you could still easily see that he could still lead the England Test bowling attack. His fitness is without question, and evidently his hunger and love for the game is without question. But there was an example of selectors who decided that, you've been in the team for so long, we need to start bringing others through. I mean, Jim, could you see Kohli playing on so long that he, would be dropped eventually, that a tap on the shoulder would be needed? Or do you think he would have that sense of, players say one day when you wake up, you just know?
Well, that's the experience of a lot of people you speak to have been good cricketers and retired. They choose the moment that they go. But sometimes maybe they need a little bit of coercion to get to that point. I mean, Alan Border, we had no idea when he was going to retire. And eventually, after coming back from South Africa 20 odd years ago, he was playing golf and made a decision on the golf course. This is the time to go. Entirely unexpected. So you don't always know, but you like to think the players would know before it got to a point of embarrassment.
Yeah. Cherry, just remind us what happened around Tendulkar, Dravid. If we think of MS Dhoni as well, legends of the game who, ended their careers. What were those circumstances?
Most famously, of course, Sachin Tendulkar, who was searching, and all his fans along with him was searching for that 100th.
What a wait that was.
Gosh, did it take long. Gosh. So, yeah, in his case, everybody around him just refused to let him retire. And he, too, by then had developed a bit of a thick skin, a wall, saying, well, all right, I will go when I want to go. And I was quoting that a little earlier, Alison, in the program, saying that you should really be saying, I will go when the selectors no longer need me. But, I will go when I want to go sounds like I don't really care about the selectors. So maybe the terminology wasn't quite right, and he did stay on a lot longer than he perhaps should have, because 3 or 4 generations of cricketers who could have slotted in where he was were just left by the wayside and never played for the country because he was there for so long. In Dravid's case, he probably realized that the game was getting more and more towards the T20 game, which he wasn't really suited for. So he left in a very organized fashion, I think, without anybody climbing onto his back. And Dhoni, of course, is the ultimate maverick who left Test cricket in the middle of a series in Australia saying, enough, I'm going home. And all the rest of the forms of the game as well. Yeah. He took these decisions very quickly, and he didn't really care about the fact that his fans would say, why? He just said, that's it, I don't want to play anymore. And I think that was probably the best attitude, where you just walk away and don't let anybody else influence you. By the way, Jim, I have to very quickly mention that we always held Australia up as the epitome of being ruthless when it comes to selection.
There have been some brutal moments, but less so in recent times. I think the selectors have tended to allow things to happen and hope that the players recognise that this is a good time to go. Or maybe a word in the bar or something like that. This is a good time to go, right? David Warner didn't hear that. He kept playing.
But if you're in the Kohli positive camp and you're thinking about the 2027 World Cup, to what extent would other players benefit from being in a World Cup team built around Kohli and his experience at major events like that?
Well, if you're asking me, people would be happy to have him. But if you take him into the team, you have to play him. I mean, he can't be, one of the extras or whatever. So there will be a section of hungry young players saying, well, there goes another World Cup. I mean, here I am, the prime of my life, and playing well, but I can't get a look in because Kohli must get a look in. And if you play him, and God forbid he gets a 0, 10, 4, 3, 2, when do you drop him? So, because if you drop him, he's just going to walk away. So it's a very tricky decision. I have to say this. I really do think there are so many talented youngsters. Alison, all of us make this classic, well, I'm saying error, but comment anyway, that, what happens next when so-and-so goes? Well, guess what? There are, now in a game which is robust in some countries, there are half a dozen or a dozen people ready for that slot, and they will hopefully come good sooner than later.
Well, then let me ask you about where you think, speaking of youngsters, where do you think Vaibhav Suryavanshi will be in relation to that 50-over team come 2027? He's the 15-year-old wonder kid, and he continues to do crazy things in the IPL. What, just the other day against LSG, another 93 off 38 balls, casually.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous how he continues to keep getting those runs. But can you imagine, in the power play, of course, is where most of these players are very destructive because only 2 outfielders. Now, in one-day cricket, you have 15 such overs where there are only 2 fielders outside. So he could be feasting for so long that he'd get 150 or whatever in no time. But that's only theoretical, of course. I do think he has not quite been proved yet on surfaces away from India. And if the World Cup is, say, in other territories such as Australia, England, South Africa particularly, where the pitches tend to be spicier, then he is certainly a very unknown commodity. And he may go through a bit of a trough there, a bit of a problem to begin with. But I do think he has such extraordinary talent and that hand-eye coordination, that fearlessness, that he might actually surprise all of us by perhaps a few edges, all right, but still slamming bowlers all over the park. Because it's the bowlers, Alison, who tend to suddenly, get into a funk, saying, where do I bowl to him? I thought I bowled a really good ball. It's gone into the crowd. So he has now been blooded into the under-19 team. The Indian selection has gone to that point already quickly, but not yet into the main Indian team, where I think they're still kind of just a little shaky. Perhaps a good reason, because they don't want to ruin his confidence, should he, God forbid, go through a couple of, or a lean patch or a couple of bad matches. So they're holding on to him, but I can't tell you the collective opinion here in India or the push in India by even cricket pundits saying, bring him in now or never, because he is that exciting. So for the moment, I think the Indian selectors have done well by keeping him away and blooding him in the under-19 team, although that's playing in a neighborhood area. But we need to send him in a not such a high-profile series in either Australia, South Africa, or England, see how that goes, and then say, all right, you're ready.
And that's going to be a fascinating journey to watch. And if you had Suryavanshi and Kohli in the same squad, same team together with a 20-year plus age gap. That would be quite something to behold. Well, that's it for Stumped for this week. Make sure you join us again next time. My thanks to Jim Maxwell and Charis Sharma. Give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode. Until next time, bye for now.